Hey guys, thanks for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. If you're a returning listener, it's great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, really glad you joined us. Hope you like what you hear. So, in our continuing effort to find awesome people to bring onto the podcast, we have found yet another awesome person. Ally is joining us tonight, and Ally is super interesting. If she had a Dos Equis, she might be the most interesting woman in the world. So she was born in New York, but then spent early part of her life in equatorial Africa in different countries. Went to school and got degrees in psychology and in English, and has her MBA. She worked in the environmental field, both for not for profits and the US government for a long time. Lost her husband along the way, ran for Congress along the way, has written books along the way. And she's going to come on and talk about all of those things and what she's learned and share her wisdom with you guys. So, super, super excited to bring her onto the program. So, let's do that right now. Ally, welcome to Salty Ginger Talk. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me, Joe. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we had you and I had a great conversation a few weeks back, and been really excited to bring you onto the show and let you share your experiences and all the good stuff that you've put together out of those experiences with the audience. So, with that said, if you wouldn't mind, give the audience just a little background about yourself, where you're from, and kind of how you got from point A to point B, broad terms, broad brush strokes, and then we'll dive into the details from there.
Broad brush strokes from soup to nuts. I spent the first 5 years of my life in equatorial Africa, then moved to California, then Massachusetts, then Virginia. Went to high school in Pennsylvania, college in Virginia. Ended up waitressing and bartending for a few years before joining a nonprofit environmental foundation. Then spent 30 years working in the environmental management and policy field. Would still be doing that, but the job was eliminated. I was working as the program manager for the Defense Department's Natural Resources Program. That job was eliminated during the first Trump administration. I set out my shingle and was doing great for about 3 months. Then the pandemic hit and my business failed. I then ended up running for Congress to represent my district, during which time my mother became very ill. I became her full-time caregiver, and she did pass after she died, and after the campaign ended. Obviously, I was not elected. Both my kids ended up going off to school, and I found myself alone. I didn't mention my husband passed about a decade ago, so I found myself living alone for the first time in about 10 years, and kind of hit a low point. Ended up writing some life advice for my kids that ended up becoming a published book. The book has done well, and it's led to some speaking engagements and some other things. I actually have a couple projects in the works, and here I am now with you.
Wow. So, what a path. That is quite the story. Let's start off in equatorial Africa. Whereabouts in Africa were you born and where'd you live?
Well, I was born in New York City, St. Joseph's Hospital, but I left when I was 6 weeks old, so I don't really remember it. My father was stationed overseas, and we lived in several countries, Somalia and the Congo, and it's escaping me now. And then he went back over when I was 12 and spent about 4 years there. So my sister and I went for summers, and we lived in Chad. We lived in Burkina Faso, which was then a revolta. We were there for the coup. And we lived in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which was then Zaire.
Wow. The reason I ask is I actually have a couple of business partners. One is from Liberia and
Hmm.
one is from Nigeria, and both immigrated to the United States as young men. And
Yeah.
anyhow, it's yeah, that's a super
Well, I
interesting.
never visited any of those countries. I have visited Senegal, and my sister was born in Nigeria, I mean in Kenya, in Nairobi, but I've never been to Liberia or Nigeria. So,
How do you what sticks out to you the most about your experiences visiting Africa?
how spoiled and wasteful we are as Americans.
Totally. Yes, I think that's what I shouldn't say. I know that's right. I was gonna say I think that's right, but I know that's right. That's yeah, that's a good call out. It's so I can talk politics. I generally don't talk politics. I don't find it productive, and it's not what the podcast is about. But regardless of your political persuasion, I find it shocking how many people don't recognize how they kind of won the genetic lottery by being born in the United States of America.
Yeah.
Like
Or at
it's
least the geographical one.
yeah, what yeah, that's a better way to say it. That's a much better way to say it. Um yeah, like it's got its flaws. So it's certainly not perfect. Never claimed it was perfect. I recognize all of those things. However, um yeah, I don't think people have any idea how the vast majority of the rest of the world lives
Yeah.
compared to how we live here. So,
Yeah. Well, who was it who said travel broadens the mind?
for sure. No,
Yeah.
that's a great I haven't heard that. That's a great statement. Um yeah, so what'd you go to school for? What was your degree in?
I have undergraduate degrees in English and psychology, with what's called an emphasis in sociology, be the equivalent of a minor, but they didn't have minors. And I have a master's in public policy and environmental law and economics.
Wow. So you are super educated. And I got to
Well,
watch what I
everything's
got
relative.
to
I don't have a PhD in, neuroscience or anything.
sure, but I got to watch what I say. You're going to be psychoanalyzing me the whole time. Yeah. So it's pretty boring. Not a lot going on up there. I'll just warn you right now. So, um,
The echo,
no,
echo, echo.
yes, you can.
Sorry.
You can read my mind. How did you know? Oh my gosh, that's funny. Um, yeah, so great. So you said you bartended a little bit and
hmm
then you wound up in the not-for-profit. How did that take place? How'd you wind up in that space?
Well, I started waitressing, ended up bartending and bar managing, and I really kind of thought I would continue that, but life happened, and the man I was living with stole all my money and wrecked my car, so I ended up
Oh my
having to move
gosh.
back home with my mom. And I ended up going to a temp agency. My dad had a friend who worked at a temp agency, and they sent me on a couple interviews, and one of them was to this nonprofit environmental foundation. And I was like, I could do this every day and feel good about what I do when I go home. So
Nice. So you
30
started
years
there.
later,
Yeah, 30 years later, right? So you started there. What was your first role there? What'd you do?
I was the project assistant. And I helped, my first big project was my first big project was to organize and color code this initiative called the North American Waterfowl Management Plan. And this was in the days of, hard folders and whatever. And I walked into this Bill Gear, that was his name, Bill Gear, awesome guy. And he had this little office and it had these stacks of file folders, no joke, 2, 3, 4 feet tall. And they were just like all over the place. And he was like, yeah, so, organize it. I was like, what? But I did. And it actually took me less than a week. And I filled, the old filing cabinets that had the long drawers that you lifted and you pushed the thing in and you pulled out yeah, four or five drawers full
Good
of
Lord.
those. And I color coordinated it by, the initiative, the region, the species. I did this whole cross-reference thing. It's actually kind of cool. So that was my first big project at the foundation, and then I ended up helping this guy Peter Stengel, also another amazing guy, to create the Partners in Flight initiative, which is an effort to help stem the decline of neotropical migratory birds. And that initiative has continued to progress. And it was one that I actually managed from DoD's perspective when I went there. So that was cool. And I did a newsletter and all kinds of stuff. It was a lot of fun. I was low
Tell,
man on the totem pole. I was the 13th employee they had. So literally we could all sit around the same table and have lunch together. Now they're, a huge group and lots of offices, regional all over the place. But back then it was a very mom and pop shop kind of thing. So it was a great learning experience and the people were amazing and fantastic and I remember all of them. So,
yeah, I was going to say it sounds like a great experience. And
yeah.
it's funny because you talked about going through college and then waitressing and bartending. I think we talked about it. My day job is I'm the CEO of a company that owns and operates grocery stores in Chicago. And that's exactly how I started in the grocery business. I was at the end of a check stand bagging your groceries when you bought them and or grabbing carts out of the parking lot. And there's such value in learning a business from the inside out. You don't know it while you're doing it. You're just doing what you got to do
Yeah.
because you need some gas money or you got to buy food or what, whatever you got going on at that point in your life. But I call it out because I just want the listeners, like, as you sit here now, you've got so much experience under your belt, but that started somewhere and you've busted your ass for 30 plus years
Yeah,
to get to where you're at. I think it's always important
absolutely.
to call that out. And you've got a lot of lessons that you're going to share with us here, which we're super appreciative of you doing. So what happened where'd you go from there when you left there? You went to the actual government?
So what happened was, I was working with this woman, Jackie Howard, and at the time, the U.S. government was turning over the Panama Canal back to the Panamanian government. But the military bases, for those who don't know, military bases, you think about bombs or whatever, training lands, but the reality is they have huge buffer areas, and DoD lands actually have more high quality, pristine habitats that are home to more threatened and endangered species per acre than any other land management agency. And they need that for safety and buffer zones. So they have very high impact on a very small percent of their lands. So they were going to be turning over this land back to the Panamanian government, and there were a number of people, the Japanese especially, were really excited to develop this land and put up, hotels and commercial properties along along this. A lot of it was waterfront property. But the site is actually a WISRN site, which is a Western Hemisphere Shorebird Reserve Network site, which means that it's critical. It's provided critical mudflats to a lot of the flora and fauna, and there were some other things going on. And anyway, she was working for this group who was trying to categorize all of the. She was working for DoD, and she was trying to categorize all of the lands, and it was a joint venture with the foundation, and I ended up working with her, and this is a lot of detail, probably more than you want, but
No,
anyway,
I
we
love it.
ended up going to Panama, which was awesome. And by the way, there's no mosquitoes in Panama. So
Really?
yes, because when they were building the canal, they put so much DDT everywhere, the mosquitoes have never returned.
Wow.
Poison works, it just does. But anyway, regardless, other things have come back. But anyway, she and I went over there and we spent a week there, more than a week, and we got to go all over the place and really just it was amazing. Anyway, in the course of spending all this time with this woman, she happened to mention that they were looking to hire somebody to come in and help with the natural resources stuff of the program because her bailiwick was more cultural resources because it was both natural and it's a long story. Anyway,
Mm.
I was like, wow, I'm going back to school. I'm going to be getting this master's and I'm working, 50 to 60 hours a week at the foundation. And I was like, I can't do that and go to school. And she was like, oh, that's crazy. You never have to work more than 40. You can be flexible, this and that. I was like, I need to apply for this job. She's like, you need to apply for this job. So I applied for the job and I got it. And so that's how I ended up starting with but it's funny because I applied, I sent my resume and everything over, and I thought they were hiring two positions, and one was sort of managing, and then the other was like assisting. And I thought, well, I'm going to get the assistant role. And I got called in, and they're like, we're excited for you to come in and, get this. And it was called a coordinator position. So they hired me for the job that I didn't think I was actually qualified for, which just goes to show that I so exemplary of me and I think of so many people that we undervalue ourselves way too often.
Mm.
So often we have so much more to offer than we think we do. So, but that's how that started.
Got it. Well, look, I know it's a movie, but did you ever see Working Girl with Melanie Griffith and Harrison Ford?
Oh yeah, wear less bracelets? Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the exact
Where
scenario of
did you
her.
get that idea? By the way, I had a boss who did that to me too.
Yeah,
So,
I've had similar scenarios with bosses, but it reminds me of the very end of the movie where she's proven herself
and she
putting together
goes and
this.
sits at that secretary's desk. Right.
Yes,
That spoke to
exactly.
me. Oh, that spoke to me. I can't believe you brought that up. That spoke to me so much. Yes, that was
I love that
exactly right.
movie. Yeah, I
Yeah, me
love
too.
that movie. It's a great movie. Yeah, so you spent 30 years there, and well, so we're skipping ahead a little bit. Um, you had mentioned that your husband had passed. That had to be a terrible experience, obviously. How did that come about? I'm not looking for a whole bunch of detail, but how did it come about, and like how did it? What did you do afterwards? One of the things we talk about on the program a lot is life's going to kick you in the teeth every once in a while, and you've got to learn how to put your life back together after it happens. That's the whole point of my question. I'm not trying to put you on the spot or make you feel uncomfortable.
No worries. It's fine. Um, he died of cancer
Hmm.
2 days after his 52nd birthday.
Ooh, really young.
We buried him the Saturday before my daughter transitioned to middle school and my son transitioned to high school.
Ooh,
It was a rough time.
yeah.
The big thing that I did, there were two things that I did. One, because I did have some psychology when my kids turned in, turned into themselves, shut me out, whatever. I was able to encourage them to continue a dialogue with me. I gave them space. I didn't force them, but I just explained to them that I was here for them and I talked to them and I would just, I mean, I just pretended they were talking back to me. Sometimes I would create their own conversations for them because they needed to heal. But so often when you have a tragedy like that in a family, it tears everybody apart and it drives a wedge between children and the parent that survives. Same with divorce. And I knew that that's what would happen. So I worked very actively to try and encourage the children to communicate with me, not forcibly, but just by letting them know I was there and by continuing to talk to them. I picked my daughter up from school. And I was like, "Hey, how was your day?" And she'd be fine. I was like, "Yeah, so who'd you sit with at lunch? Did you sit with so and so? And yeah, and how was that math test?" And blah, blah. I would just like go on and on and on and on. And eventually they would start to open up and we were able to go through it. The other big thing I did was Thanksgiving has always been a big deal for our family. Everybody comes, to us. And I took them to visit relatives in Wales because they don't celebrate Thanksgiving in the UK. And
Sure.
I don't think we could have faced Thanksgiving without him. So for that first Thanksgiving, we left the country. And
Makes
those were the
perfect
two
sense.
big
Yeah.
things I did. And now my
Wow.
kids and I are very close. So seems to have paid off.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was so it's interesting. And I loved your answer. So it's a commentary on me, not you. I was thinking about it from your perspective. It literally never once occurred to me. I know you had kids, how your kids dealt with it. And, that had to be, doubly hard because you're trying to process it, but at the same time, then they were at such impressionable ages when it happened too, huh? I mean, they're still forming they're making their way into the world a little bit.
Hmm.
Not even the real world, but just kind of out into the world. Wow, that had to be just really
Yeah, and
difficult.
losing friends and all kinds of things with changing schools and stuff. But here's the thing, Joe, that is important to me, and it's just my priority. My book is full of quotes. We've talked about that, but one quote that I have just lived by ever since I saw it is from Jackie Kennedy Onassis, and it's if you mess up your children, nothing else you do really matters.
Mm,
And so, as far as I'm concerned, because I have chosen to have kids and I have chosen to bring them into the world, then I have accepted the responsibility that it is my top priority to care for them and enable them in the best way that I can. And and that's just how I view it. But for me, after the death of my husband, I processed my grief quietly on my own, although I expressed to them that I was sad and I missed him, and I encouraged the kids to talk about him. And, I certainly let them see me cry, but I processed most of that grief on my own because my goal was to help them process theirs because they didn't have the life skills that I did as an adult to be able to handle it.
yeah, wow, you said that so well. And I view parenthood exactly the way you did. Like I was there. Nobody put a gun to my head or my wife's head. So like these were choices that we made, and you have absolute responsibility to take care of the outcome of those choices, right? I mean, you're the
Hmm.
one that chose to bring the kids into the world. You have a responsibility. It's and with boys, I always felt a special responsibility as their father. And I told them that I had a conversation with each of them separately, somewhere between 8 and 10, when I felt like they were ready for it. And I said, look, everyone else in the world can be anything they want to you. I'm the only one that can be your father. Like, it's
Hmm.
me. That's me. I'm the only one that can do it. And I take that responsibility very seriously. And it's my job to make sure you grow up to be good men. Now, I will say, I'm very fortunate. I don't hold a candle to my wife as a parent. And I think I'm a pretty good parent, but I don't hold a candle to my wife as a parent. So we made the choice when we started having kids that she was going to stay home and her full-time job was going to be to run our family and run our house. And it's by far the biggest advantage my kids have had in the world is their mother.
Yeah.
But, being a man and teaching them how to be men, that was my job. And I told them, I love you enough that I'm always going to tell you the truth. And you might not like it. In fact, I know you won't like it a lot. And it's not my job to be popular. It's not my job for you to like me. I hope you like me. Like I'd like it better if you did. But if I could sign a contract right now that said you would hate me for 10 years, but grow up to be good men, I would sign it immediately. Cause like that's the most important thing that I do. And like, I've
Hmm.
built a career and all the other stuff that goes with it. It doesn't matter at all. And I think your quote encapsulates that perfectly, your Jackie Kennedy
Yeah.
Onassis quote. That's so well said.
Well, we're very lucky. We're clearly, privileged. It's a privilege. It's a privilege to choose to have children. Not
Yep.
everybody has that choice.
Yep.
Sadly, some people don't get to make that choice for themselves. And it's a privilege that we are both in a place where we're able to care for our kids because not everybody can,
Mm,
through, either external or internal influences. There are some people who mentally, emotionally, psychologically, financially really struggle with that. Um, and it's a blessing that you're able to have your wife stay home because a lot of people can't do that either. So, we're pretty lucky that we can do that. But regardless of a situation, for those people who do choose to have kids, I agree with you that you need to take the responsibility to try and do your best, whatever your best is.
that's right. That's all you can ask of people is their best. Like,
Hmm.
can't expect someone to do something they're not capable of doing.
Yeah.
But I think you said it earlier. We undervalue ourselves a lot, and a lot of times we think, I can't do that.
Yeah.
That means you are uncomfortable or don't want to take the steps to be able to do that. Sometimes it's not that way, but a lot of times it is. So, anyhow, so then you are working at your new gig. You love it. President Trump comes in and you're unceremoniously kicked to the door, right?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I got called to the Pentagon, and the SES who ran the program, oversaw the program, said she wanted to meet with me, and I was like, well, what do you want to meet on? I'm working on this and this and this. I've got like 8 different things that I'm working on actively, and I didn't get a response. And I'm like, whatever. So I, take the bus over to the Pentagon because we were at this annex building they have in Alexandria, and take the bus over to the Pentagon. I've got my, stack of folders, and I'm like, sit down, and I'm like, okay, I've got this and this and this and this and this and this policy and whatever. And she's like, yeah, Allison, I went by Allison back then. She's like, you do great work, but yeah, we have to let you go. I was like, what? Like, what? So part of me appreciated that she wanted to do it in person. Another part of me was like, I just spent 20 minutes lugging 10 freaking folders, 20 pounds worth of crap over here. You couldn't have just called, you know? But yeah, so it just happened. They're like, you're gone. I mean, that's all it was. They're just we're not, you know, it's just we're eliminating the position. So
Wow. After 30 years.
well, no, I wasn't in the same position for 30 years. So I'd only been at that position. It's convoluted and way too much for this show.
Mm.
But I had, different roles at different times. Um,
But you had 30 years of experience in the sector you were working in.
yeah, I did. Yeah, absolutely. But that's okay. That's okay. And it really worked out the way it was meant to be. So I can't complain. I'll be honest, I'm a lot happier now. I'm a much happier person than I was. And I never would have had the opportunity to do the things I'm doing now. In addition to which, after that happened, I took the summer off and I spent the whole summer with my kids, just like being like a stay-at-home mom,
Mm.
which I had never been able to do. And because, my I went back to work when my son was like 6 weeks old and my daughter was, I think it was about the same. So what a gift to have that time with them. And that's something that, you can't put a price on that, right? You don't get that back ever. And so no matter what happened, I would never have regretted that, taking that time. It was a gift.
I love that. And so one of the things I try to do when we do interviews with is with guests is highlight common themes we hear over and over and over again from such we have such awesome people like yourself that come on the podcast. And one of the things I hear all the time is reframing things to a better way to look at them. And just so the guests don't miss it, what Ally so brilliantly described there is looking at the benefits she got from a situation that she would not have chose on her own. So life happens and she chose how she reacted to it and focused on some of the positive things that came out of it and not the negative things. And it's not a mistake that she's sitting in front of you now talking about all the good stuff that she's doing. That's a choice. She's made choices and she's taken action. And it's really important to call that out so you guys don't miss it. And kudos to you, Ally, for doing it.
Thanks. Yeah, and in fairness, I was pretty to use your word, I was pretty salty when it first happened. I was not a happy camper. I was like, so that's there's a healing process that goes with it. There's a processing that goes with it. It wasn't like you're fired and I was like, yay. I was like,
Right.
you're fired. I was like, what? Like, are you kidding me? But so it is there is a process there. So it's not just like poof, but it is an active decision. And also, here's the thing. I mean, life is yin and yang, right? Like they say, no matter how thinly that bread is sliced, there's always two sides. And
Mm.
so you can choose to look at whichever side you want. And if you choose to stay in the negative space, you're just going to be a miserable and unhappy person. But if you choose to find the positive, that silver lining or whatever you want to call it, you'll actually be happier, you know? People who live a positive life have more positive life outcomes. They handle stress better, they're more fulfilled. So you can choose. It is a process. It can take some time, but anyone can do it.
Yeah, you just have to decide to do it. And look, that's easier said than done. Totally get it. And everybody's circumstances are different and things impact people in different ways, but you still have choices. And you've got to accept that you have choices and you've got to live with the choices that you make, is what it boils down to. So, what did you do? So, you took the summer off. You had a great experience with your kids. What was your next
Started my
professional?
own business.
Yep.
Yep, did writing and editing. Had some good jobs. Hit up my old contacts, and then the pandemic hit. So I mean, I was offered several positions because I'd been in the space for decades, so I knew people and people knew me, and they know that I'm a hard worker and that I did well, and so I was offered several positions. Um, But have you ever, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but like when you're driving down the road and there's a traffic jam, like I will drive 20 minutes out of my way just to keep moving because I don't want to sit and
I'm
stop.
exactly the
Yeah,
same way.
right?
Yes.
Like I don't want
Yes.
to just sit there in traffic, right? And I
Yes.
don't want to double back. I'm not doubling back. You can't get me to double back. So for me, taking a job in the environmental field felt like doubling back. It felt like I've been there, done that, right? So even though I did have a number of job offers, which was a blessing, truly a blessing, I didn't want to take them. I really didn't. And I remember my friend Liz, she was like, "Don't wait too long. The job offers are going to dry up." And I was like, okay, but I don't really want to do that anymore, you know?
Yep.
The environmental world doesn't want me, fine, I don't want them. I don't know. But I just felt like maybe it was the universe. Maybe it just was time for something else. And I didn't want to double back. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to get stuck. So I just didn't.
Yeah. Where in this series of events, when did you write your book?
I wrote my book after my kids went off to college, and I was left alone, and I had no job, no one to take care of, nothing to do. And I remember waking up one morning, it was pouring rain, and it was like cold, wet, and I'm in bed, and I was like, I have no reason to get up.
Hmm.
I have no reason to get out of bed. Nobody needs anything from me. There's nothing I need to be doing. And I was just like, wow. My cat needed feeding, so I did end up getting up to feed her. But it was a real low point. That was a real low point for me. And I had started this life advice for my kids after my husband died, but then I'd gotten busy and work, whatever, and it got pushed aside. And I ended up pulling it up, finding it. It was the oh, whatever. But I found the file folder. The actual document I had started was on an old laptop that was no longer mine. But I pulled up the file folder and I was looking through all of it. And fortunately, I printed out an early copy. And I was like, this is actually some pretty good stuff here. And I thought, this is something I can do. This is something I can do. And so I decided to continue and to write the book. And in doing that, it was really a healing process, as I think it is for so many people who do these kind of motivational self-help books. And that's really how it came about.
And so the book is, you said it started as advice to your kids. I mean,
Hmm.
so the book's behind you. It's called It's Okay Not to Be Fabulous Every Day, right?
Yeah, it's okay not to be fabulous every day, a journey to self-discovery. And it's basically the arc of the book. There is an arc to this book where we start from a place of sadness and grief, and we move on to a place where we can learn to begin to like ourselves, because a lot of sadness and grief comes from not really liking who we are or where we are, and moves us through sort of self-acceptance and into self-love and into realizing that our dreams are worthwhile, and then hopefully sets you at the end ready to take those steps. So it provides these stepping stones. And it's not a traditional you read it and it's done. It's meant to be picked up and put down. Some people use it as kind of a daily devotional. Some people just when they're having a hard time, they pick it up and read to a passage that speak. There's one guy, he emailed me and he said that he has this men's book club and or this men's club rather that meets once a week, and he said that he'll bring the book and they'll flip open to a page and they'll use that as a discussion point. I was like, that's cool.
That is
That's
cool.
really cool. I love that. So it can be used in many ways. Each short chapter starts with a quote, and then there's a couple pages of a personal story or some life lessons. And the goal is for each reader to see themselves in those pages and to extrapolate from my experiences into their own. Because even though my experiences are unique to me, the underlying emotions and processes are all the same: grief and love and happiness and joy and law and whatever they are, right? Those life challenges, those are all the same for all of us. Um, and so that's how it came about, and that's what the book is intended to do.
Wow. So you were an English major, so like the written word is you're very familiar with it. Did you find the process difficult or did you fall into place fairly easily for you when you started?
So what was difficult for me, because I sent it to my kids, and they're like, Mom, you use way too many big words. Like, we don't understand half of these words. I was like, okay, fine. So I do tend to use esoteric words. Um, and I did have to go through. I kept some in because some, words are words are unique. Words are unique sometimes, and each word can have a specific character or flavor that you want to keep. But some words I just, they're interchangeable. So I can use a word that, yeah, I don't have to use a 50-cent word every time.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, I agree with you. That's what the salty is, right? And I contend to my death that there is no word that substitute for fuck in certain instances. Like it doesn't have the same connotation. And look, I use a lot of other words, and I'm well spoken guy. I've been speaking in front of people since I was about 14 years old. And so I'm very comfortable in that environment, and I have a pretty big vocabulary and blah, blah, blah. But like I don't think there's words that have the same connotation in those certain circumstances, and that's why I'm unapologetic about using all of the English language available to me to convey my thoughts and feelings. Is the way I think about it. Plus, there's lots of studies that show that people that curse are intelligent, are trustworthy, and are earnest. So
is that right?
that is true.
Well, damn.
Well, but well, so like Bill Cosby was real vocal about guys rapping and cussing and while he was drugging and raping women. So, like, let's do a little purity test here on
Yeah.
what the bad sin is. But anyhow, I love I have loved rap since its inception, and like I'm 53, so I do remember its inception. And the thing I like the most about it is the creativity that is displayed with the language.
Yeah.
Like that's what I love about rap. Like, there's a group called a Tribe Called Quest, and they
Yeah.
had some really interesting lyrics, just the way they structured their lyrics and used different words to convey different thoughts and feelings. I always found it fascinating. So,
Yeah. My son is a huge rap fan, and he's
hmm,
always reading me, Kendrick Lamar lyrics, and some of them are like all kinds of artists. I like some rap. I'm not a fan of other, but there's no doubt the wordplay is amazing. What was the
yeah,
one he said? It was about like silent G, or it was something. I don't remember what it was now, but it was really clever. So,
yeah, they can really convey with language some pretty interesting stuff through rap, at
hmm.
least from my opinion. How
Yeah.
did you get your book? Did you publish your book? Did you self-publish it?
I did it through a small press,
Mm,
sort of self-published, yeah. But
gotcha.
I didn't do the mechanics of it.
Yep. Did you do what do you do for promotion for your book? I mean, obviously it's for sale. And by the way, we'll have a link to it so you can get to Ally's book. Don't have to go looking for it. It'll be in the show notes. But what did you do for press? Do you do book readings? Do you meet with groups? How do you interact with the folks that read your book?
Yeah, so I tried to do like marketing and promotion when I first started, and I tried the whole ad thing of Facebook and Amazon and whatever, and it was exhausting and I'm not good at it. So I failed utterly. But learned some important lessons, which is that I just don't need to try and sell the book. I just need to talk about what I need to talk about, and that has worked much better for me. I come on podcasts and talk about not necessarily the book, but just life lessons
Yep.
and experiences. And I've won a number of awards for the book, and I have socials. I've given up on my X or whatever it is, but I have socials, the Insta and Facebook and LinkedIn. Um, and I put out positive messages and life quotes and that kind of thing. And then I've done some readings, and I do public speaking. I'm doing one. Well, it will have happened by the time this comes out. But that kind of thing. So, and I have a project in the works that I can't really talk about yet, but by the time this show comes out, I might be talking about it. It's kind of exciting. It's a joint effort with my son, and it's actually gonna be really awesome, I think.
Wow.
So
Sounds really cool. Please keep us in the loop on
will
that.
do.
We love having people back on the podcast. Like I said, we have such awesome people that come on. Like it, we can do multiple conversations with them, which we like to do. So,
Oh,
um,
I also do YouTube shorts. I do book recs, like book
yep.
recommendations and stuff. Yeah, I forgot about that. I just do, like everybody, I just do a bunch of stuff.
That's what we do too. And so it's interesting to me because I'm shocked how much I enjoy doing this. Like, we have not monetized the channel yet. We've had a couple of people approach us, but that's not why I do this. Like, it's not what it's about to me at all. We want to expose our audience to a lot of interesting people who have built really successful lives. And like your story fits with all the other stories in that you started down a path and you wound up at somewhere very different. But it was because you kept taking action, you kept trying things and figuring out what you did and didn't like. And when life happens, you deal with what happens, and that can send you a different direction. And you make the best life you can from where you are that you enjoy. Right. And
Yeah.
so it's so interesting to hear everybody talk about all their experiences. Tell us what it was like to run for Congress.
That was probably one of the toughest things I've done.
Hmm.
Um, it was emotionally traumatic, if I'm perfectly honest. Having said that, if I can do that, I can do anything. I can do absolutely anything. There was so much corruption in the local party that is ironically just coming out now, which I find hysterical because nobody believed me when I was trying to tell them. I was like, the campaign manager for the guy who was running against, like he accessed our data, he manipulated it. I was like,
Wow.
oh yeah. I mean, it was bad. It was bad. I can't even go into all the things. You just honestly, you wouldn't believe them. Um, but it's interesting because it's all coming out now. But it was like a swimming up a waterfall. Um, it's a lot more work and a lot more moving parts than it appears from the outside. And you have to be really careful about who you bring on board. We had a campaign manager who may have been working for not us, even
Oh,
though we were
a
paying her.
plant? You had a plant?
Yeah, something like that. And it was I, I don't even know where to begin. I'll be honest. It was so much. So I worked probably 14 to 16 hours a day. On Sundays, I only worked 8 hours. That was a rule that I had. I would only work 8 hours on a Sundays. I barely saw my daughter. My son actually started as my campaign manager until we brought an experienced campaign manager in, and then he just became a political advisor because he's good with that kind of stuff.
Mm.
And it's you have to be on all the time. That's actually how I came up with the title of my book. It's okay not to be fabulous every day because when you're campaigning for office, you have to be fabulous every day. My mom's at home and I'm out at an event. I could only go out when one of my children was there because my mom was unable to walk by herself. She needed help bathing and feeding and all these kinds of things, right? And so I'm doing all these things and then fortunately or unfortunately, it was still pandemic-y at that time, kind of the end of the pandemic. So a lot of things were still on Zoom and virtual, which was great. But for the in-person things, when I went, I had to, I had to have my kids here to help, and I never saw my daughter. Like I literally didn't see my daughter for months, except in passing. Um, and you have to be on. It's like smiling and everything's great.
Mm.
And you're like, you're thinking about like whatever it is, you have to get refills on medications and you got to, have this call with the doctor, the cardiologist and all these things. And somebody's like, "So what's your stand on blah blah blah?" And you're like, "Yes, right. I'm going to talk about that now. Yes, housing, education. Yes, healthcare. Yes, I'm going to talk about these things right now." Um, and it's a challenge, but um, I'm glad that I did it. because it instilled me with so much confidence. When I started, I really didn't embrace that I was an experienced or competent professional, which is weird because I remember this one person who was running that I met. The person said that they were an expert in their field. Come to find out, they were 2 years, like they'd only been doing it for 2 years. And I was like, I never wanted to call myself an expert because in my field, an expert means you have a PhD and at least 10 years experience. That's an
Mhm.
expert. Everybody else is not an expert. So I was not an expert. I was considered a generalist because I knew a little bit about a lot of things. But, some person's got 2 years in their field. I've got 30. I'm like, okay, there's a different scale here. So by the end of the campaign, ironically, if I started where I had been at the end, I think the outcome would have been different
Mm.
for a number of reasons, not just because of my confidence, but of course, my mom, I would have gotten over my mom by then and whatever. And so, uh, uh, but, they say it takes 3 times to run to win. And it's because it's such a huge learning curve. Like there's so many things you have to know and do. Um, and I was asked to run again, which was really flattering. I really appreciated that. And I had some amazing supporters. I just had some of the people who supported me were just incredible, like really incredible. And I'm so incredibly grateful to them. And I feel like our campaign made a difference, right? So the incumbent actually copied our website, changed his logo to copy our logo, stole our materials and put them out as his own. All these things, signed on to legislation that I called him out for not signing. So all that got out there, all that got done. And I didn't get credit for it. He took credit for stealing my stuff, but but it got out there and it helped people. And so in that way, I feel like it was a success, even though I wasn't elected.
What motivated you to run? I mean, that's a huge undertaking. Like you knew that going in. You clearly knew because you have both. You're clearly very intelligent and you had experience in the government. So
So, I wasn't working. It was pandemic, and my son and I were watching Knock Down the House on Netflix. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not.
Okay, so it follows the story of 4 people running in the 2020 election. It was, I think the only one who was successful was AOC. There were 3 others who were running, and we're watching these people and learning their stories and seeing what they're doing. And my son looks over to me and he was like, "You've got more experience than all these women." And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "You should run for Congress." And I was like, "What? What are you talking about? Are you on drugs?" Um, and he kept pestering me about it. And it was a several months back, wake up one day, I'm like, I'm doing it. Next day, it's like, there's no way. And eventually I did. So I threw my hat in the ring, and for better or for worse, it happened.
Wow. That is that is crazy. That's good for you for
But
taking
anybody can do it, right?
right.
It's a free country. Anybody can do it. Anybody can run for office. It's crazy, but anybody can do it. You'll lose if you don't have a great deal of corporate backing and you're not within, an insider in the party, but you can still do it. Um, and who knows, you'll be successful maybe on the second or third time. And it makes a difference. Running makes a difference, even if you don't win. And I proved that.
Yeah, that's great. I've heard that. And I've zero experience in politics. I've been asked or told a lot that I would be good in that world. I don't think I would because I'm used to being able to go and do stuff. Like that makes sense. Let's go do it. And that's not how government works at all. So I don't think like could I get elected? Probably. But would I want to? Probably not. But with that said, I have heard that the party itself really puts its thumb on the scale, even in primaries, to really push for the candidate they deem as the most worthy for a particular place. It sounds like you experienced that when you ran. Is that a true statement?
100%. And both parties do it.
Yeah, that's
We
non-denominational.
really don't, we really should have ranked choice voting, and we should like try to get rid of the party system, the two-party system. It's broken. What we have is one corporate party with two halves.
I
Um,
totally agree with you. They just want to control different areas of
yeah,
your life. This is the way I
yeah,
look at it.
yeah. It's ever since Citizens United, it's just been on steroids, and it's it is perverting the entire system,
Mm.
and it's a tragedy. It really is a tragedy, and I think things are going to get much worse before they break and then get better.
Yeah, I kind of feel like there is a little bit of a sea change building. There seems to be an increasing level of distrust, which is necessary. I think there's an increasing level of frustration, which is necessary. And I think it almost feels like what was the bug movie? There was a movie as a I think it was either Disney or Pixar, the grasshoppers and the ants, and the grasshoppers were running things, and the ants all looked around and went, "Hey, there's like a billion of us, and there's 30 of them. We're not putting up with this shit anymore."
Yeah.
I feel like that's building, and
Yeah, I
uh,
do too. Yeah, I do
yeah.
too.
And look, you just experienced, you went through this in the last 5 or 6 years. Did you hear that a lot? Because you would have been a complete outsider in that arena. Did you hear that a lot from the folks you interacted with during your campaign?
100%. Yeah, 100%. The problem was that the gorilla in the room has all the money,
Mm,
right? Although if you look at the New York race, right? Cuomo had 25 million. God, if the money spent on campaigns was spent to fix some of society's worst issues,
right?
we would be a much better country to live in. It's absolutely appalling. But anyway, he had 25 million dollars and huge support from the Democratic Party. The man has 11 sexual assault allegations. Why is he even a candidate? Like that's appalling. But he
No,
wasn't
no,
successful.
Allie, he's just Italian. That's how they express themselves. You don't
I
remember?
think people are remembering his father. So anyway, um, the reality is that the reason incumbents do so well is because of name recognition. And the
Yes.
reason name recognition works so well is because this is not going to be popular to say, people are lazy. They
Yes.
don't want to do their research. They will watch the television ads, most of which are lies. They misrepresent positions all the time, but people simply believe it and absorb it instead of all you have to do is just look, you know? All you have to do is just look. Spend 5 minutes doing research. People won't do it. And, that's until people decide that they are going to educate themselves, things won't change. But having said that, I feel like, especially young people now, with social media and sharing that they do, they're starting to really clue in on what's going on behind the scenes. And it's really awesome to watch. It is so empowering. And I think, the old farts in our 50s, 60s, and 70s, we forget what we were like when we were in our 20s. We think, oh, they don't know anything. They're just in their 20s. They're just dumb kids. Screw that. When I was in my 20s, I know that I didn't feel like a dumb kid. And I think it's very short-sighted for some of these, us old white-haired folks to minimize or discount what is going on with people who are in their 20s or even 30s, because these kids they're on it, man. And they're bright, they're intelligent, they're competent, and they're adults. They're young still, but that just means they got a lot more energy. So I'm excited for what will happen in the next few years. But like I said, I do think it's going to get a little worse before it gets better.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And the thing about young people is they just don't have life experience. It doesn't mean they're stupid. It doesn't mean they're not capable of grasping concepts. It doesn't mean their
Yep.
opinions don't matter. They're just coming from a different place.
Yep.
We haven't aired his interview yet, but it'll be airing here pretty soon. But a really intelligent young guy. He was 14, but he's from Romania. and he reached out and wanted to come on the podcast because he has a podcast in Romania talking about US politics. And I said,
Oh,
sure, we're like,
wow.
we can do that. And he was super, super bright kid. And we covered a wide range of topics, and it was a great conversation. But he brought up abortion. And I
Mm,
said, so I think it's important to just recognize one thing that's different about us in that I started a family. I have 3 kids, and you're still in high school. That doesn't make me right. It doesn't make you right. It just means we have different life experiences. So we're going to come at this subject from with very different viewpoints because of those experiences. Now, with that said, let's have whatever conversation you want to have, but let's recognize that your viewpoints are valid and matter, and my viewpoints are valid and matter, and let's have a respectful conversation, which is exactly what we did, right? And so I think this whole generational warfare that I see happening is very misguided. Like there are benefits regardless of if I meet someone that's so I'm 53, if I meet someone that's 70, I think, hey, that's a person that's got 17 years more life experience than I do. I can learn something from them even if I think very differently than them. Let's say that we're diametrically opposed on policy. That doesn't mean that they don't have 17 years of pretty valuable life experience that I could learn from if I'm willing to ask them questions and truly listen to what they
mm-hmm.
say. And that's the approach I try to take regardless of who I'm talking to. And I can learn something like that kid was doing a bunch with AI. He was very interested in AI and the ethics around AI. And like he hasn't, he's not jaded like like a 53-year-old guy that's been kicked in the teeth a couple times in my life. He's got a very different viewpoint. It was very interesting to hear him talk about the
Yeah,
ethics
I
of
also
AI.
think though, it's not just age because, if you've got someone who's lived in a small town America their entire life, yeah, they've got some life experiences, but then if you meet someone half their age who's traveled the world, tried all kinds of things, met different people, who are you really going to learn more from?
Yeah, I think it depends on the subject. But
Yeah, maybe. I don't know
um
because I'll be honest, when I meet someone, I feel like I'm not only meeting them, but I am meeting all the people that they have interacted with
sure.
because we absorb. It's the Coach Wooden comment, right? Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. So if you're with a lot of people who are doing a lot of amazing things and trying new things or studying philosophy or whatever it is, you when you meet that person, you get the benefit of all the people that they have met as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Also, mentally, I'm 27, so gonna put that out there.
You're ahead of me on the curve. That's the thing. Like, I'm responsible for a lot of stuff, and I'm like, I know every line from Caddyshack, right? Like,
Right.
I could recite that movie to you right now, and you're
Right.
putting me in charge of all this stuff. That just seems like a bad idea. Um, how did you handle fundraising? Because you were an outsider, so the party wasn't going to throw a lot of money your way. How did you do that for your campaign?
Yeah, they threw no money our way. No
Yeah,
money, no help, no nothing. They're supposed to help all candidates equally, and yeah, that didn't happen. I didn't take any corporate PAC money, so I just took a lot of time to call people. I did a lot of phone calling. Um, I raised more money than any other challenger had recently, but relative to how much I needed, I didn't raise enough money. It
sure.
was very hard because, well, that gets into staffing issues. I don't really want to go there.
No worries.
But you need a really good person helping you with finance.
Got
That's
it.
important. Yeah. And also I kind of did it backwards, right? Like because I'm a neophyte, right? I didn't know what I was doing. And so I
Sure.
ended up hiring a campaign manager first and then later hiring the fundraise. Yeah, that was bass backwards, right? You hire your fundraising person first because you need to get the money in place before you even can develop a campaign to manage. So that was a huge lesson learned, which, if I were ever to run again, I would know. But yeah, fundraising is a challenge, calling people. I got to meet some amazing people though. I mean, I didn't meet them. I was talking on the phone mostly, but uh, people are people are great. People are great. So, yeah.
So you just said if I ever run again, do you have any thoughts on whether you will or not?
I have no interest in running right now, but I'll be honest with you, I continue to get asked to run.
Mm.
Just I continue to be asked all the time, which is really, it's just, it's like humbling and I don't know what the word is. It makes me feel really good. I'm sure there's a word that it's just not coming to me right now, but it just makes me want to go, oh, thank you. Thank you so much. That's so awesome of you. I really appreciate that. Like, genuinely, really appreciate that they believe in me enough that they would ask me to do that again. And not only just ask me to do it again, but in doing so, offer to help me in the run. And that's huge. That's just people willing to give up their time, their effort, their money. That's a lot. And but I don't have any immediate plans to do it. I really am enjoying what I'm doing now, and I haven't fully accomplished everything I want to accomplish in this endeavor yet.
Yep. Um, how do you like, what do you like the most about speaking? Because you do a lot
I
of,
like, I like, this is gonna be terrible. I really enjoy sharing my message. I care about it a great deal. The thing I like best is chatting with folks afterwards and like hearing what they have to say and listening to them share their stories, or more importantly, or not more importantly, but more impactfully, hearing how my words have helped them. That's a gift you can't pay for. That's just, yeah, that's my favorite part. And it's so selfish, I know, but that's what I like.
that's, it's funny because that's another common theme that we hear. And so we have just such a wide variety of people that come on the podcast. I talked about the 14-year-old kid from Romania. We had Liz came on and she talked about terrible experiences around incest and rape that started when she was 4 years old. We've had
Oof.
parents that have lost children come on and talk about how they learned to build a different life after that terrible event happened. And to a person, all of them talk about getting the most value for themselves by helping other people. And so it's very counterintuitive. You would think that if you wanted to make your life as good as possible, you should focus on your life, when the exact opposite is true. When you focus on others and
Yeah,
helping others and solving other people's problems, it grows your life to a place that it never would get to on your own. So it's so
yeah,
interesting. Every single person that comes on the podcast has that in common. And
yeah,
so I know that's true because I've just got so much experience talking through it with folks.
yeah. Yeah,
No,
when you give, you receive.
that's
It's
right. Now, you're a life coach as well, right?
Yeah, I don't do that so much anymore. I don't have the time for it. I did do some life coaching, and the thing is, to be a life coach, you have to commit a certain amount of time and energy and effort to a person. You're committing to them for some period of time that you agree upon together. Um, and and work with them and meet with them and that kind of thing. And I'm not in a position right now to do that. I would be shortchanging people if I took anybody on. It wouldn't be fair to them.
Sure. That makes sense. What do you spend most of your time on now? Like, what's your main priority now?
Currently, this very moment, my main priority is finishing my new adult slow burn spicy romance.
Ooh. When's
Yes.
that going to be done?
I have a preliminary first draft in place and I'm going through it and trying to finalize the draft right now. So it's the first in what I envision as a three-part series, and I have the skeleton of the second one and an idea for the third one, and I think that will close the loop on the summer because it's a summer story.
Mm,
So yeah, we'll see how it goes. It's funny because I sat down to write. I wanted to start something new, and I had in mind something that I wanted to write. And I still want to write this. I still want to write this book. Like, it's still a book I want to write. And I sat down to try and write it, and I was like, and I typed a few words, and I was like, and I was like, let me open a new document. I just had an idea, and I just started typing up, and then pretty soon I found I was just coming up with this. It just came out of me. So I was like, oh, I'm writing a romance, which is ironic because I don't read romances. But there you go.
And is this the first romance you've written?
Yeah, I mean, being an author is really fairly new to me.
Yeah.
This book is my first book. Ironically, I don't read self-help books either, which I do address in the book. Yeah, I never can get through a self-help book. And so, this, and I put it out originally and it was out for a while. And then when I started getting all this feedback from it, like people actually were enjoying it and wanted to read it, I was like, let me take another look at this. And I was like, I'm not really proud of this exactly. And so I went through and, well, I'm not proud of it. That's not the right thing, but it wasn't a complete work because it didn't position itself. So I added like introductory materials to try and explain what this book is because it's not a traditional self-help book. It really is not.
Yeah.
And then I added some bonus materials at the end and did some minor tweaking of the chapters internally, not too much, but it did help with the flow. I had a lovely woman from Beacon Press who reviewed it, and she suggested I switch two of the chapters, and that actually just completely made the flow better, which was really cool. Um, so it only came out in November. So I started work on my second book in January.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
and
it
I'm
sounds
slow,
so,
so
uh,
because I
what it
because I'm doing
sounds,
other things. But
sure, sure. But I mean, it sounds like you really enjoy writing. Is that true?
I do. I do. I love it. I love a turn of phrase, you know. And I come across words occasionally and I think, how am I going to use this? I really like I just came across liminally. I was like, oh, liminally. What a fabulous word that is, liminally. Now I have to figure out how I can use that word in my story.
What does liminally mean? I've never heard it.
To be in a liminal space is to be in a place of transition and uncertainty, kind of between two places.
Hmm.
So, um, you'd be liminally involved in something like between two. That's what I mean. It's a really unique word, and it has to be used in a special way. So, yeah. So I love that. It's the English major in me, but also the psychology major in me, right? Because I love wordplay, but I also like what those words convey, what they make you feel, what they make you think, because you can use a word. I learned this when I was doing my policy degree, I did a course on survey development. You've all like, I'm sure you've taken surveys, right? People walk up and they
Yep.
sign this survey, take this survey. Well, there's a whole art to it, and you can really manipulate the answers depending on how you frame the question.
Big
And
time.
taking that course was just really eye-opening for me. And it's interesting because not long after I took the course, was walking into Department of Interior, and this woman walked up and she was like, "Sign our survey." And I was like, "Well, what's the survey?" She's like, "No drugs in the workplace." And I was like, "Well, I'm not going to sign that." She's like, "What do you mean you're not going to sign that? I don't want drugs in the workplace." And I was like, um, excuse me, caffeine, aspirin, these are some of my favorite drugs. She's like, "Well, we don't mean those. We mean illegal drugs." I said, "Well, when your survey says illegal drugs, I will be happy to sign it. Right now it says drugs, and I'm not giving up my Java." So, it's just it was really interesting. It was a poorly designed instrument that they had, but anyway, the whole point is to circle all the way back around. Is yes, I love writing because it allows me to explore the wordplay, not only the linguistics of the word, but also the emotional and psychological impact of the words that I'm using.
Yeah. That makes total sense. I've thought a lot about writing a book and I can't settle on what to write. So it's interesting to hear you say you've written books in genres that you don't read.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and look, I love the English language too, and I'm very kind of like Steinbeck, very not verbose, right? So get to the point, basic structures, things like that. And I know that resonates with a lot of people. But I don't know, maybe I will, maybe I won't. I certainly wouldn't do it like for finance. Don't get me wrong, I would publish it and hope people bought it and all that stuff. But I certainly wouldn't be, looking to become Stephen King and make my living off of writing books. But I think it'd
Well,
be an
that's
interesting
good because
process.
most people don't. You know
Yeah,
that, right?
right.
Did you know that you have a greater chance of being struck by lightning than you do of hitting the New York Times bestseller list?
No, I didn't.
It's true.
That makes sense to me
Hmm.
when you think about all the books that are floating around out there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. Although they say that 81% of people want to write a book, but less than 4% ever do.
Mm,
And of those, I think it's just 1% actually publish them.
wow. A lot of frustrated authors out there, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. I think people have a story they want to share. They just don't prioritize it
Yeah.
because it's not something that just happens. You have to sit down, block out the time, and not do other stuff. And there's always that list of other that needs to be done. Um, so really, I that was one thing that I really struggled with, to be honest, at first. Like I really wanted to write this book. I had these notes I'd started and was kind of excited about the idea. And I had an idea, like I had my story through line. Like I got that. But writing the dialogue and the scene setting and this, right? Um, and it's really hard. And so I thought, you know what? I'm just gonna write for 1 hour a day. And I wrote for 1 hour a day. And then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna write for 2 hours a day. And then I was like, okay, I can't do this like by time. It just doesn't make sense. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna put a word limit. I'm gonna say I need to write 1,000 words in a day. Right. And then, I worked up and I was like, I'm gonna write 3,000 words in a day. Well, then I finished the preliminary draft. I was like, well, I can't write 3,000 words because I'm done with the storyline. So then it went back to, uh, you know, spending the time on it. And now I don't really think about it, to be honest, because I really just enjoy it. So I try to spend as much of my free time as I can doing it.
Yeah, well, and you're right too, because so the podcast is my example because, I have a real job and like it's not a small job. But I really enjoy the podcast, but it's a lot of work to do the
Yeah.
podcast. And I mean, I do it all on nights and weekends because like I wouldn't be doing my job if I was taking time during the day,
Yeah.
just to go work on the podcast. But like, we've had hundreds of people that have great stories to share, but to do it right, you need to one have a screening call with them, get to know them a little bit, and make sure you understand what is and is not within scope in terms of what to talk about the conversation. And then you got to do research if you want to be prepared and have a good conversation with someone. You need to learn some things about them. And most of the people we deal with have websites and or books or professional histories that you can read and kind of learn about them so you're prepared. But like I think a lot of people say, oh, well, and there's plenty of these out there where someone just sets up a phone and starts talking. I was never interested in doing that. And I'm not interested in, a lot of people, I want to go viral. Okay, whatever. Like if we create interesting conversations and a lot of people look at those, I think that's awesome. That's the point of what we're doing is to get interesting conversations out so people can see that all of us are kind of experiencing similar things. It might be a different path, but you touched on it earlier, right? Love and guilt and shame and anxiety and whatever. We're all going through all of those things. They just manifest themselves differently in different people, and different events cause them for different people. And the more we can understand that, I think the better off we are, you know. So that's why we're trying to do what we're doing here. That's it. That's the whole point of it. And wherever it winds up, it winds up. We don't have any goals or targets or trying to make it. I'm not trying to be the next Tucker Carlson or Rachel Maddow, depending on which side of the aisle you sit on. Um, but we want to help people. And I think, at least from my perspective, I think you get to a certain point in life, and at least for me, I got to, my late 40s and went, shit, it turns out I'm not going to live forever. I actually thought I was going to live forever, and I'm not. And I've accumulated a lot of information and a lot of knowledge and a lot of really good stuff from the life that I've lived. And I want to make sure I share that to help people when they're building their lives or get through their lives. Cause I think I've developed a lot of really good ways to think about things and coping mechanisms that help me in my everyday life. Why not share those things? I feel like it has an increased importance to me the older I get. Like family has an even more importance. It's a higher importance to me the older I get. And I've always been a family guy. I got married when I was 21 and never ever thought once that I made a mistake or regretted it or wanted anything different. But it just gets more pronounced the older I get. And I find that interesting. I don't know why that is. I just know it's true.
I find it interesting that you think I said love. We all deal with things like love, guilt, and anxiety. Because
You may not have said that.
I find it interesting you chose guilt and anxiety. No, I said something along the lines of love and loss and grief and joy.
There you go.
You
Thanks for
chose you chose guilt and anxiety, so I'm just going to psychoanalyze that.
you can and you're 100% right. I knew when I said it, I'm like, that's not what she said. I couldn't remember exactly what you said, but that is what you're exactly right. That's what I
But those
said.
are the things that you're dealing with. So that's what's going on with you. So,
Potentially. Really, we have a lot of people that come on the podcast and talk about how to deal with those emotions. And I think
mm.
I might have been inserting that in the conversation, but
But those are genuinely, those are things that we do all deal with,
oh, for sure.
right?
Yeah.
So, those are definitely things that we all deal with. I think the biggest thing that we deal with, and this is probably something that is universal as well, but is really regret. That's
Mm.
the one that I think stands out for most people when I talk with them is really that sense of I have always wanted to. Like when I was life coaching, especially, I have always wanted to. I want to. You know, that's the old Nike, just do it. I say in my book, it's like just do it. It's so easy except for that doing it part, right? So,
And you probably know this already, but um, there's been study after study after study talking to people that deal in palliative care, and they're with people in their final moments. And the theme in their final moments around regret is always things they chose not to do.
not to do. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not what they did that
No.
they regret, it's what
We
they
never
didn't
regret things that
do.
we do.
That's
That's
exactly
something that
right.
I'm really, really trying to instill in my kids. They have both taken really big risks, big life risks, um, and continue to do so. And every time they're like, I kind of want to do XYZ, but I don't know. I'm like, you got to do it. And to the point now where they do it. They do it themselves.
Good for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great, not good for them, great for them actually.
It
So,
is great for them. They'll have so many fewer regrets than me, and then so many fewer regrets than most people.
yes. I, so I've said even since I was, late teens, early 20s, 100 years from now we're all going to be dead. None of this actually matters. We build it up.
You were a ray of sunshine as a kid, weren't you?
Believe it or not, I've always been very positive and very optimistic. It's just a way of framing things
Yeah.
for people that are trying to get over the hump. I call it
Yeah.
getting over the reef, like the reef from Castaway. So I
Yeah.
use that as the analogy, right? Tom Hanks, to get saved, his character needed to get over that reef,
Over the reef.
and he couldn't get over the reef. Once he got out in the reef in the open ocean, he had a shot. But until he could get over that reef, he was screwed. And
Oh
it took him
no.
4 years to get over the reef. And I call it
Yep.
getting over the reef. So,
Him and Wilson.
yep, well said. Um, but so 100 years from now, I'll be dead. Just the truth. Someone else will own all the shit you own now. They'll live in your house and they won't know who you are. They won't know anything about you. But I relate that now to Queen Elizabeth II because she was on the throne for over 60 years. She lived one of the most consequential existences of a human being ever. Everybody knew she was. She built a ton of wealth. She experienced multiple things. She served in World War II for Britain. Um, and I'm not, this isn't a quiz for you, but what I tell people, without looking it up, tell me when she died and name three things that she did in her life without Googling it. And most people cannot. Most people don't have any clue on any of those things. So then I will say, if no one remembers what one of the most consequential and well-known people in the history of the world did, do you think they give a shit if you fuck up karaoke Friday night? Go sing
Yeah.
karaoke if you want to do it so bad. Go
Yeah.
do it. Ask the girl out, write the book, send the email, take the trip, whatever it is, take your shots.
Yeah, I use a quote from Queen Elizabeth, "Grief is the price we pay for love." I think it might be the first quote in my book.
Mm,
So, and I do know a few things about her. So,
yeah.
I know that she went to Africa. She was one of the first people to do that. And I know that she had a wild sister, Margaret.
Really? I didn't know that about her.
Margaret. Oh, you didn't? Oh,
Uh-uh.
yeah. Princess Margaret. She was the wild child who gave up her inheritance and her right to the throne to go off partying with her photographer lover. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
And
know
I know
Queen.
that she and her husband had a very special romantic relationship, and it was not all for show. They genuinely cared about each other.
Yeah, I know she took her duty very seriously. Like she took that responsibility very seriously.
Hmm.
She was a very interesting and accomplished lady. Not because she was queen, but because I think she used the resources available to her in what she thought from her judgment were really good ways. I think she largely did too. But like we could have done a lot worse than her in that role, the way I see it, at least.
Hmm. Yeah, maybe so. Maybe
Yeah.
so.
But I don't know. I've never been a king or a queen, so I don't know if
No,
I'm
and
the
it's
right
kind of
person.
a figurehead role, so she didn't really run the government or anything.
Totally. Yes, that's exactly right. Well, so Allie, one of the things I always do is, as we're winding down here, is there anything I haven't asked you about or any subject that you want to talk about or any point that you want to make to the audience that uh, I haven't brought up? So essentially the floor is yours. Is there something we should talk about before?
The one thing that I really always like to, I don't know if talk about, but certainly share is that so many of us, and certainly I was, very much in that position, really undervalue ourselves. And we touched on it briefly,
Hmm.
but, you know, too many of us spend time in places and with people who bring us down. And we believe what the naysayers, I call them naysayers, say. We believe the people who belittle us or who minimize our accomplishments or who make fun of our dreams. And one thing I really, really like to share, and one thing I believe very, very deeply, is that every single person has everything they need inside of them already to live the life they were meant to live, a truly joy-filled, purpose-filled life. And if you have a dream, you need to lean into that and go for it. And if you're finding like you said, you've thought about writing a book, but you never really get around to it. Is it really your dream then? Is that really something that's important to you? Or is it maybe
Sure.
something other people have mentioned? Because
Yeah.
if it's truly important to you, you will find a way to do it. And I really, really want people to embrace that they are worthy and that their dreams are worthwhile. And no, don't spend time with people who don't support you. If you do nothing else in your life, eliminating people who bring you down, belittle you, and diminish you will make you a happier person just by getting rid of them. You don't have to do anything else, just by surrounding yourself with people who uplift you, who believe in you, and who care about you. That's all you need to do to live a happier, more fulfilled life.
Wow, that's a great point. I always liken it to I use Teddy Roosevelt's "Man in the Arena" speech, and I think he hit the nail right on the head. So I've been in I played baseball through college, and so I've played in front of 5,000 people and blah 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 blah. I've been in public positions, and that attracts criticism. It just does, whether you want it to or not. And I can tell you, I rarely make global statements, but I'll make this one. I have never been attacked or uh, aggressively criticized by someone doing more than me. Never, not once. It has
Yeah.
never happened because they're too busy doing what they do.
Yeah.
And I liken that to Teddy Roosevelt's "Man in the Arena" speech, where it's not the man on the side making comments that matters. Don't listen to the critics. They're in the way of the person that's actually doing the things.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to sit in the bleachers and lob shit on the court, that's not on me. That's on you. I'm going to keep playing the game. That's the way
Yeah.
I think about it. And you're right. Like it's your comment about me in the book is 100% correct. Because if it was important to me to write a book, I'll write a book. And if it's
Mhm.
not, I won't. And that's okay. Like you can do anything you want in life, but you can't do everything. Like
Right.
you have to make choices. And if it's important to you, like I've always said, my family is very important to me. You know why I've been married for 33 years? Because I act like my family is important to me. Like it's not an accident. I
Yeah.
didn't get lucky. You know, I got lucky meeting my wife, but after that, it's been the two of us working together to build a relationship that works for both of us.
Luck
So
is what happens when preparation meets opportunity.
love it. One of my favorite quotes. One of my favorite quotes. So, well, listen, Allie, you had referenced a project with your son, and you've
Yeah.
got your other book coming out. Please keep us in mind. And when you're ready to
Okay.
talk about some of that other stuff, I would love to have you back on. You're a
All
great
right.
guest. I love your
Oh,
message,
thanks.
love your energy, and I really appreciate you sharing it with our audience. And maybe, just maybe, you can come on when you're running for Congress again if you choose to do so.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I've enjoyed this conversation as well. It's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. We have too. So take care. And until next time, you be well.
Thank you. You too, Joe. And thanks to everybody for watching.
Awesome. Thanks, Allie. Okay, we're good.
Yay.
You did such a great job. You were
Oh,
so
well,
good.
thank
I love
you.
it.
Thank you. I had a good time. You're very easy to talk to, and I love the informal format. So that's
Yeah,
been
it
really
works
good.
really well. And like I say, you know, I'm not you just know me from our conversation, but I don't say things I don't mean. Like, you know, someone will say you should apologize, and I'll say I apologize when I'm sorry, and I'm not sorry. So like you can hold your breath, you can wake up, still be waiting for the apology. Yeah, you just did an awesome job. You're so
Oh, thank you.
yeah, no, you're just so well spoken. You've got such a good energy about you. I love the audience to see that from different people. And I appreciate so much that you're willing to talk about some tough stuff, you know, the loss of your husband and your job ending and blah, blah, blah. And I don't mean to blah, 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 like it's
No, I get it.
insignificant.
It is. It's blah blah blah. It's like one thing after another.
Yeah, but like you reframe it and you move forward. And it's such a great message. It's good for people to see someone who's built a really happy and successful life. A lot of people say in spite of those things. I say it's because of those things, because you learn so much from those things, even when they suck, even when they're shitty. And yeah, just really appreciate you doing it. So
Thank you. I appreciate that. I do.
yeah. So
Yeah. And I'm glad you've got this show, and I'm glad you invited me on. So thank you.
yeah, well, thanks for reaching out.
And
Really
I will
appreciate it.
reach out again, maybe in a year. The book's going to be at least 6 more months, just with, 3 rounds of editing. I don't know how much you know about it, but you have to go to a content editor, then you have to go to a developmental editor, then a content editor, and then you have to go for like the copy editor. So it's a huge long process. But yeah, so it'll be a few months. But this idea I have with my son might be happening this fall. So
Yeah, well,
I
look,
will reach out.
I was gonna say we're around. We'd love to have you back on, and
That's
you know,
awesome.
we can bring
Maybe
more
we can
people.
both be on. We'll tag team.
That's
He's
what I was just gonna.
awesome.
That's what I was just gonna say is if your son wants to come on too, when if and when that pops up, bring him on. Like we'd love to do that.
We're gonna make this happen. It's gonna happen, Joe. I'm gonna make it happen. I'm gonna reach out. Yep, we're
I
gonna do
love
it.
it. I
Yep.
love it.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Ali. You did a great job. Really appreciated our conversation.
Thank you. I'll look forward to seeing it on the 6th. And when is the Romanian one coming out?
You know, I'll find out and send it to you. We're
Thanks.
first world problem. We've had so many awesome guests that we're stacking up these interviews that have been done but
Yeah.
not aired yet. I think he's late July. His name's
Okay.
Elias. He was a really, really interesting kid. I enjoyed my conversation
Yeah.
with him. We went a full 2 hours, he and I. So
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I would love to. I'd love to see that. So please do send it.
Yeah, we'll do.
All right, cool. All right. Well, thank you so much, and I hope you have a great evening.
All right, you too. Thanks.
Thank you. All right.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Okay, so We did not oversell Allie in any way, shape, or form. What an awesome lady she is. Loved her message, loved how she shared things, and she's very well spoken. Not hard to see at all why she's a speaker. Loved the genesis of her book and what she's done with her book and interacting with the folks that read it. Ran for Congress and gave us kind of a look at the good, the bad, and the ugly of what that process looked like. We'll cross our fingers. We think someone like Allie being in the House of Representatives would make that a much better place. We need more people like Allie there instead of some of the people that are there now. So super thankful for her coming on. She did a great job. And I talked to Allie a little bit after the podcast. We will definitely have her back on. She's working on a couple of projects that she can't talk about right now. But when those things go public and she's looking to spread the gospel on those, we will definitely have her back on, and we're very excited about that. So James puts it up over here every day. Don't forget to head over to our website, saltygingertalk.com. All the podcast episodes are available there. Links to all the social media accounts are available there. We've got a newsletter we publish every weekday that you can subscribe to there. And please like, share, comment, subscribe to the podcast, whatever platform you consume it on. We have awesome people that share awesome messages and bring a whole bunch of knowledge and wisdom and help for you to build the life that you want. You don't want to miss the next one. They're going to have great stuff to talk about as well. Make sure you catch that episode. We will see you there.